All right, so moving on to the next segment, I'll be sharing my own personal list of the biggest storylines heading into the second half of the NBA season. So, buckle up. This is where real basketball begins. Yes, the NBA season starts in late October, but this is where everything counts, where you have the final 25 to 30 games of the NBA regular season. Then you have the NBA playoffs. That's a whole nother atmosphere. We're buckling up for the second half of the NBA season. These are my biggest storylines for the second half of the NBA season. So, storyline number one is, can LeBron James and Luka Doncic go on a deep playoff run? So, this is the question that has caught everybody's eye for the second half of NBA season. How effective will Luka Doncic, the pairing of Luka Doncic and LeBron James, be out there in LA with the Los Angeles Lakers? We know that the duo of LeBron and Luka could be explosive. You have the GOAT, in my opinion, and you have Luka Doncic that could be a generational talent. Two tremendous basketball players. In my opinion, I think the Western Conference is wide open. I really believe that the West is wide open because you have young teams like Oklahoma City Thunder, the Grizzlies, the Rockets. They're all young, but they lack that type of experience that you need to go on deep runs right now. And I feel like the Nuggets are the favorites out there in the Western Conference if I had to bet on somebody today to get back to the finals if healthy. But I think the Lakers can slide in and make a run in the West and make some noise because LeBron and Luka, the sky's the limit. They are a pretty effective defensive team. The only thing that the Lakers are missing is a center. And that's the price you had to give up. You had to give up your big Anthony Davis in order to get a young, talented player like Luka Doncic. That, to me, is one of the biggest storylines because what if the chemistry of LeBron James and Luka Doncic picks up quickly? They're already a top 5 team in the West. What if they pick up their chemistry quickly? It doesn't take time to develop, and they go out on a run and start scaring a lot of teams out in the West. It could be scary hours in LA, but we'll see. That's one of my biggest storylines for the second half of the season. Now, next is, can the Cleveland Cavaliers continue their dominant run in the Eastern Conference? Now, currently, the Cleveland Cavaliers have been the best team in the Eastern Conference this year. 42 wins, 10 losses, number 1 seed in the East right now. They have been a dominant force in the Eastern Conference the first half of the NBA season. Now, in my opinion, I think they're the biggest threat to the reigning defending NBA champions and the Boston Celtics. They're right there with them right now. We know the Celtics pick it up a notch and they got that championship experience. But I think the Cavs are the biggest threat to the Celtics right now. Yes, I know the New York Knicks are there with Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns. They got one hell of a squad in New York. But you cannot discredit what the Cleveland Cavaliers have done, and you can't put the Knicks over them right now based off of what the Cavs have done this year. And looking at their lineup now, they got the chemistry is already there. Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland. Now you get the missing piece in the starting 5, that being DeAndre Hunter. You add him at the small forward position. You also have Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. That's a death row lineup in the Eastern Conference, and they got a pretty good rotation. They're good at shooting the ball. They're effective defensively they're effective on both sides of the ball. That's everything you want in a championship caliber team. Plus the chemistry is there. The question is, how far can they go and can they continue this momentum? And can Donovan Mitchell be that guy to get them to at least the Eastern Conference this year? Because that's their number 1 scoring option, and they're going to live and die by him based off of what the production you get out of him come playoff time. So that's a big storyline. Cavs, can they continue their dominant run in the Eastern Conference? Now, next is, can the Dallas Mavericks go on a run without Anthony Davis? Whoa. Now, that trade is still mind-boggling to me, but now we have a problem. And it's not Houston that has a problem in Texas, it's the Mavericks. The Rockets don't have a problem, it's the Mavericks. But even though the Mavericks did lose a young star and Luka Doncic that could possibly be a generational talent, in that trade you also get your own generational two-way player in Anthony Davis that is effective on both sides of the court. And very, very underrated when you talk about his skill set, I feel like Anthony Davis. Yes, we know Anthony Davis has put it all together, playing alongside LeBron, but the only thing that basketball fans wanted out of this, the pairing LeBron and Anthony Davis, is LeBron to properly pass the baton over to Anthony Davis, and he is the number one scoring option in LA. You never got that out of Anthony Davis because at times it could be inconsistent. At times there could be bigs that take advantage of him on the court, like Nikola Jokic or Sabonis. Those two centers come to my mind when I think about Anthony Davis playing against bigs. But as I digress, I really feel like Anthony Davis is one hell of a player, and he is a generational talent. The problem is, even though they got him in this trade with Luka, he had a good opening game, a good debut, I should say, with the Mavericks. He had 26 points, 16 rebounds, 7 assists, 3 blocks against the Rockets a few weeks ago. But damn, the injury bug got him. I mean, now he's set to miss. I'm reading this right here. He's set to miss the next 3 months with an adductor injury. And right now, the Mavericks are a top 8 team in the West. Kyrie Irving is going to have to lead the way if they want to make some noise out there in the West. Now, if they could get to the playoffs, then maybe, but that hurts because the chemistry of Kyrie and AD was not developed for the second half before the NBA playoffs. So we'll see what the Mavericks can do, but their new star player, Anthony Davis, looks so good, as good as advertised when you got him. Now he's set to miss at least 3 months of action. That could hurt the Mavericks' chances of getting into the NBA playoffs. They could possibly make the play-in, but if they don't go on a run, they're going to miss the playoffs this year. But we're going to see if they could do it. And I got 2 more actually. Will the Pistons finish above 500 this year? Now, I think the Pistons are actually going to finish above 500 for the first time in 10 years. Now, shout out to my guy Manny. Manny, the host of the Run podcast that comes on with us. He's a big Detroit Pistons fan. But I got to say, the Pistons are building something special in Detroit. Now, I honestly had them as one of my sleeper teams in the Eastern Conference to begin the NBA season, but I didn't think the Pistons were to be this good this NBA season. Now, Cade Cunningham has really brought this Pistons team to life. He got awarded, he got his honors and got his flowers of being a first-time NBA All-Star this year and truly deserved it. He's averaging 25 points per game. They got Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, the young players out there in Detroit. And they gotten better defensively. And when you look at the Pistons, there's talent around the board. And they're a pretty well-balanced team for a team that was nothing. Like, I mean nothing. 2-3 years ago, being one of the worst teams, being the worst team back-to-back years in the NBA. But Pistons fans have suffered a lot over the last decade, and they've had some horrible records. Being cursed and missing out on the number 1 pick, even though they had top 3, top 4 selections in the lottery. This Pistons team, they're getting everything that they deserve. And it's fun to see new teams emerge out in the Eastern Conference. I always enjoy underdog story in sports and seeing the teams that suffered the most climb up the rankings and become great contending teams. Not saying the Pistons are contenders, but they are building the foundation of one day being a competitive team out there in the Eastern Conference. And better days are ahead because they're going to be a top 7 team come playoff time, at least. But last storyline is, can Jimmy Butler help the Golden State Warriors go on a playoff run for the second half of the NBA season? Now, I still stand on what I said a week or so ago when the NBA trade deadline occurred. I don't think the big 3 of Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, and Draymond Green is good enough to win an NBA title. Due to the fact that Steph Curry is 36, 37, Jimmy Butler in his late 30s, Draymond Green 34. I don't think that's good enough to win a title. However, they are 3-1 since they acquired Jimmy Butler, and for whatever reason, Jimmy Butler has this new desire to play basketball on a much worse team because the Miami Heat, roster-wise, was a better team than the Golden State Warriors were. But, hey, as I got addressed, since Jimmy Butler's gotten there, they play better defensive basketball. They're drawing contacts, getting to the free throw line with Jimmy Butler's presence. That's what Jimmy Butler did well with the Miami Heat, and that's what the roster collectively did well when Jimmy Butler was playing with the Miami Heat. But one of the things you got to pay attention to is if they can get hot in the second half, because Steph Curry is still one of the greatest shooters in NBA history. 4-time NBA champion. Jimmy Butler turns it up in the second half of the NBA season, and especially come playoff time. We'll see what they could do in the second half in a West that is pretty loaded and pretty stacked. But I think that's a storyline for the second half of the NBA season. But those are my biggest storylines for the second half of the NBA season.